You say, well, this is going to be a brief treatment. I think we'll give ourselves a couple of, we'll meet once a month for the next 3 months and we'll fix it. That was a joke.
No, that was a joke. Yeah.
But what you could say is, and this takes us back to that emotional intelligence thing, is this is someone who has strong psychopathic or sociopathic trends, right?
Yes.
There's no way around
You're
that.
lighting
Right.
things on fire, yes.
But at the core of it is something that's very human. The response, the emotion, takes them outside the pale, right?
Right. That's the issue, I think, or because emotions. Okay, you stepped on some gum and got on your shoe. Okay, just work it off, figure it out. But if you're overwhelmed with someone who you may have investment in, or situations, work, marriage, everything, then that's going to raise the ante. That's going to increase the temperature of that emotion quite a bit, and it's not going to be able to slough that off and move on. You have to do some real work at that point. So that's one of the reasons just to study emotions, right? So we have at least, and then the next point is recognizing when you have these emotions.
And the person who
I think that's an interesting thing. Wait, I'm having an emotion. What's going on? That's not the way we.
The person
kinda
that
work.
ends up, killing that person's dog may not have been aware of the impact. They may have been aware of the need to suddenly be dominant, right?
Right.
They may need to
Reactive.
suddenly for it to be well. They weren't technically. What makes that so scary? They were not reactive because they served that cold, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So if they had punched them,
So it wasn't a planning. Yeah, that's right.
it was predatory in a way.
Right.
And that's
right,
why
right.
individuals like that can be really, really dangerous, right? Because there is a, and so that requires lots of things. But if you were working with this person in therapy, you would want them to be aware of, well, hold on a second. Well, what were you feeling? And they would say, well, I feel like that guy's a punk and I need to make him pay.
Yeah.
I said, well, okay, let's talk about this. The goal would be that there's an emotional granularity that they're missing.
Right.
Because you could say, well, why? Okay, well, if you're a punk, why would you waste gas driving over to his house?
Right.
Why would you risk getting caught? Tell me something about this thing. It doesn't make any sense. And they may say something like, well, I don't. You don't know how it is. I don't let anybody.
Right. Right.
I said, well, I hear that, but if they're a punk, punks aren't worth your time, right?
Right. Why
You
are
go,
you wasting your time?
what is it? And suddenly there's a possibility of being open the window. And you might
Right.
be able to say something with someone like that. You might be able to say, I think the problem is, man, is that you don't want to feel like a punk. And you'll do anything not to
Okay.
feel like that.
Oh.
And because you feel that so deep, you have to do something really drastic.
Wow. So that emotion is just a reflection of them and what they're working on, or have.
Well, that would be an example of maybe projection. It would be an example of also what's called acting out. Acting out with a capital A involves something that has to happen in a session, but instead of processing the emotion, it generates an action.
Right.
So, and if you're working with this person in therapy, and one of the things that I've seen, because this is I have several folks I'm working with now, and they will say, well, before I started therapy, I think I would have done this. But now that I've been in therapy and I've been working on myself, now I did this. And you can literally see how they've generated a level of emotional intelligence.
Right.
And, and if you want to think about emotions have a purpose or a reason, there's the possibility they could say to themselves, well, if I was angry, what was I supposed to do with that? And anger is often fuel for assertion.